Hi, pal. Welcome to I've Got Your Back, the podcast. My name is Michelle Sutherland, and this is a place where I want to empower and inspire you to tap into the deepest desires of your heart and discover the magic within. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode on I've Got Your Back, the podcast. I am so excited to welcome on this episode my dear pal, Rachel Chan. Hello.
Hello.
We've been talking about doing this for ages, and finally this episode is here. I don't know how long it's going to be because Rachel and I can chat and chat and chat, especially if it's to do with self-development and transformation and change or well-being. We're just so aligned in so many things. And just for a bit of background, Rachel and I have known each other for many, many years through our Arbonne businesses. We've never actually been connected through our Arbonne business, but we're part of the wider Arbonne family. And it's actually been such a joy since relocating back to Scotland to reconnect with Rachel and actually deepen our friendship. And it's just been so amazing because we realized we're just aligned in so many ways. And we have long chats about lots of different things. So it's been one of the blessings, I would say, of moving back to Scotland has actually been reconnecting with Rachel, but also just deepening in our friendship and things we do in business and how we do business and fresh ideas and supporting each other in our other businesses as well as our bond, because we are very much like we both have our own brand. We both love to do multiple things. And I'm sure you'll know that from Rachel and I, we like to do multiple things. But that's what's being an entrepreneur is all about, is having multiple things. And like Arbonne's an extension of our brand. Rachel will tell you all about her other strands of our brand as well. But fundamentally, we have these core values, and I think our core values align. So basically, anything that we do is an extension of our heart, extension of our core values, extension of our mission, and we just, we play it out through Arbonne, through Vibe Tribe, like whatever it is, we just create from that place. So Rachel, for those of you that don't know you, I would love for you just to do an introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're from, just a little bit about your story, just so people have a bit of insight as to who you are and where you are now.
Yes, so thank you for having me. Very excited. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Rachel. I come from a small town, Ayr, which is just outside of Paisley in Glasgow, where Michelle's from. And yeah, what about me? So I started my entrepreneurial journey, as Michelle mentioned, with the brand Arbonne. It'll be 11 years ago now. I always say I was the poster child that should not have been successful in this because I wasn't the poster child to be successful in a wellness business. I had no background in business, I had no background in wellness. I was not the picture of health and well-being at the time. And I also came from a very small town with a small network. And back then, I never pictured myself actually running my own business, but I knew that I wanted more freedom and I had this desire for more. I just didn't think it would come in the form of this wellness business. But at the time, I was looking for a change. And when I looked into it and decided to jump in, yeah, that's really where I would say my journey of transformation, my first season of transformation, because there's been many, began. I became a mum at 22 just after starting my Arbonne journey. And yeah, I feel like in the last 11 years, there's been so many radical changes, but in the best way. So yeah, that's sort of what's led me to this point now. And something that I'm really passionate about is just empowering others not to fear change and actually to embrace it. Because when I look at all these different seasons of my own life, and I always joke, I feel like I've lived 100 years in 11. Like each time that I've really embraced change and got curious about these changes that were happening, not only externally in my life, but also internally in myself. Like when I met it with curiosity, it just meant that I embraced it more. So yeah, I'm passionate about empowering others to embrace change and also to know that at any point in their life, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, they can completely choose to rewrite their story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we can delve into sort of examples of how you've done that in your own life. But I think it's so powerful to talk about change and transformation especially in the world that we're living in when there's just so much change going on. Like sometimes it's overwhelming. And actually, we've spoke about how a lot of people resist change, like you're saying they resist it or they don't want change or, but change is actually the only constant. And it's like, how do you have the tools and processes and mindset to sort of move through it with more ease and grace rather than sort of resisting it all the time? So I think it's such a great topic to talk about and having you as a change and transformation coach because that's essentially what you are and what you're doing through many different avenues. I would love for you just to share like more about how you're actually doing that, or maybe just start with like yourself. Give us an example of how you've changed and transformed yourself. It could be one thing or it could be multiple things because a lot of people talk about you in that way, like you have completely and utterly, even in like 6 months, I've really noticed a massive shift in change. Maybe you could focus on the last 6 months, or maybe you could focus on a bit longer, but maybe share a bit more about your story. And then it'd be so good to then talk about how you're empowering others, like in that space,
Yeah.
to help them change and transform in a safe way.
Yeah. So I feel like for me, the first sort of radical, well, not the first, we would be here for hours if I spoke about all the change. So let's focus predominantly really in the last 5 years, and then we'll fast forward to kind of the last year. So I think the last real pivotal moment of change happened for me in 2019. And actually, it was when I was going through a period in my life where I was facing a lot of resistance and challenges in my personal life. So at the time I was engaged. I had two kids and, still do. I had two young children at the time. My youngest was 2, my eldest was 5. And I was in a place in my life where I really knew that the relationship that I was in was becoming really unhealthy. But I think like any radical change when it comes to leaving someone, especially somebody you've got children with, that felt very scary. But not only that, we were in business together in Arbonne. So much of our life and our identity was very much entangled. And also I look back on the version of me then, and so much of my self-worth and identity was tied in that identity. So I would say 2019 was the year that I started getting curious with that change, and I wasn't ready to face it. But what I did do, and this is something that I'm really passionate about, like if ever you are looking to go on a journey of change, I do think it starts with us really looking after ourselves mentally, emotionally, and physically first. Because in order to have the tools to navigate the ups and downs that comes with radical life change, we have to be mentally and physically able. So that, interestingly enough, that was the first year that I really committed to doing Arbonne Thriving 30 program. And it was through doing that, because prior to that, I had probably what I would describe as quite bad relationship with food. I was of the category of women who focused on calories in, calories out. To me, I thought having a bowl of grapes for breakfast was healthy, not realizing it was spiking my blood sugar. And anytime I wanted to be healthy, I'd go on this calorie deficit diet. So yeah, definitely wasn't, although partnered with a wellness brand, like for me, I hadn't really embodied that lifestyle in terms of what we promote with our wellness program. So I did that, changed my relationship with food, had more energy, had more inner confidence and outer confidence. And that's when I invested in a personal trainer. And people will laugh now, because anyone who's listening to this, if you know me now, like exercise training has become such a huge form of my identity. But before 2019, it was not. I was not the person that went to the gym consistently. I'd go on wee cycles in and out, but just really wasn't at all.
That's so funny actually, because now I don't even remember you back then. I just assume you've always been a gym person because it is so ingrained in your identity now.
Yeah,
Like I
I
just
was
never would have thought that.
I was slim because I managed my weight through my diet. But actually, I ended up just before I embarked on this fitness journey, got my visceral fat, which is your internal fat, measured. And it was quite high. So I was like skinny fat because there was fat around my organs. And that's actually the worst form of fat that you can have in your body, visceral fat. So that was quite interesting. So yeah, I went on this huge transformational journey in terms of my health, my well-being, fell in love with that lifestyle of, health and feeling good. And then I do feel like I'm a big believer in when you're not where you're meant to be, the universe will send you nudges. And it
Mm.
very much did that over a period of time. And then October 2019, it sent a boulder, which basically swiped me off my feet. And the kind of truth that I'd been hiding from around my relationship, I couldn't hide from any longer. And I was not necessarily forced, but I realized that I had to make the decision to, walk away from that relationship. And that was difficult with all the different entanglements. It was painful beyond words that I can describe. And I would say for me, that was the first time in my life where I burned down everything that I'd attached my identity to. So I left, a relationship that was at the time 7 years in the making. We had built this beautiful family life together. We had what was in my 20s would have been my dream absolute home. We trained on stage in front of thousands together as this power couple within the Arbonne community. We were well known in our local community. And yeah, it was that there was a huge kind of moment of, oh, this, it felt scary because I thought, well, everybody think that I'm a fraud, this identity that was so real whilst I was in it, the fact that this had came crumbling down. So there was a burning down of that, and I moved out what was our family home, and it actually ended up renting a house. And I remember getting into that house, and it was very bare. It was, in actually quite a deprived area in Ayrshire, because it was the only really house in the market at the time. And I remember moving in and feeling this deep sense of peace, despite the fact that I didn't have all the things that I was used to in terms of my safety and happiness. I just felt this deep sense of peace. And what's interesting is my children always say when we talk about memories, like we talk about birthdays, and actually Olivia spent her third birthday in that house in lockdown. And I literally ordered from Amazon like a £10 pop-up 10, and they always speak about that birthday like it wasn't lavish, it wasn't extravagant. We were living in an ex-council house at the time, and the girls always say that's that they want to go back to that home because they were so
Wow.
happy in
It
it.
just shows you, doesn't it? But they probably felt your sense of peace and happiness as well, like through you. And even though the material surroundings weren't on paper like super extravagant or even, in a nice area, like they were just so happy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there, like, it just gives me goosebumps thinking about like kids are so I think kids, and you've got two girls, so especially girls, they just like they make you tune in to what's actually important. Like, kids are so present, aren't they? Like, they force you to be present all the time. So, I
Mhm.
think, tuning into them, that is just so powerful that they said that at that time.
Yeah. It's a good reminder. And for me, there, it was really a journey. And, it's been a process. That was 2020, January, that I moved into that home. And I think there were periods during that change that I probably pushed my emotions down in terms of just some things that I had to really navigate through work,
Mm.
through travel once we were able to, through buying things. That year my business was in massive momentum, and I thought I was healed, and I thought I was happy, but there were still things that I knew I had to work through. And actually, again, I think everything happens the way it should. I went through a process where we had huge exponential growth in the business in 2020. And actually, from joining and building my business from 2014 to 2020, we experienced year on year exponential growth in revenue and also my income, which is not normal.
Mm.
And I think I was naive to the fact that that wouldn't always be the case. And in 2021, we saw a dip in both revenue and income, and then again in 2022. And for me, this was such a humbling experience because, again, I realized through this journey that I'd attached my self worth and my happiness to external things outside of me. So that has been a big shift where I've went on this journey, especially in the last year, because there were moments after that I started questioning: do I want to be an entrepreneur? Do I still want to go on this path? Can I? And I realized that I was attaching my magic, as you would call it, to things outside of me. But after going on this journey of really going in, I've realized the magic is me. Like, I take myself everywhere I go, and it's, a revenue or a title or anything outside of me doesn't define my gifts, but also my worth and my happiness.
Mm.
So for me, it's been a journey of redefining what success and happiness looks like.
Mm.
And that in the last year has been really transformational.
Yeah. And so specifically in the last year, what's been your major, so obviously tuning into that, which is redefining success and what that means. I've gone through this with you as well. And I think maybe I was a couple of years before you and I was really feeling it and like, getting rid of my white Mercedes and living in a one bedroom studio. Actually, when you said that about your daughters, I thought back to when I was in Byron and I was in a one bedroom studio on my own and it was tiny, but it was like the happiest I'd ever been in the whole 12 years I lived in Australia. And I've lived in apartments in Bondi, I've lived in apartments with pools and grand places. But actually, that one bedroom studio was like pure peace to me. And it's funny. So I think I sort of started having the same thoughts as you, sort of definitely 2020, 2021, because that's where I was living in Byron. I moved in 2021. So I definitely felt that. And, you know, I'm just curious to know, like, talking about this redefining success and what it means. I think it's hugely important for a lot of people right now. And I would say, especially in the Arbonne community, because a lot of it is built on titles and recognition and the comp plan. Like, everything's integrated into titles and recognition and bonuses and this and that. And of course, we know it's important to have goals, but essentially, at the end of the day, we're helping people to live healthier lives. That's it. And, that's what we should focus on. And in the process, all these other things come. But I think you and I have spoke about how it's shifted so much and redefining really what does success look like in Arbonne? What does it look like for us? Like, what does it look like in our other businesses? So I would love to know, like, just more specifically in the last year, what stood out in terms of redefining that success or
Yeah.
examples of what you've gone through.
I think for me, so I had to kind of come off path to be brought back onto my path. And I'll quickly share a bit about that. So in 2022, where I was feeling this sense of like, just how would I describe it? Just a little bit of like this feeling of like, I'm not sure if this is meant for me anymore. This real disconnect between the things that I used to resonate with within the business, the things that I used to strive for, the way that I used to do life in business. There's a real disconnect. And the more that I tried to mold myself back into ways of doing and being in life and business, the more disconnected that I felt from myself and from people around me. So I ended up actually getting headhunted on LinkedIn and I went and worked for another mission led brand in a remote role. And going through that journey and really showing up in that role for the company, for their mission, for their community, it made me realize one, the magic was me because I delivered incredible results for this brand and really showed up. Two, it made me realize that I am actually driven by mission. I'm driven by, mission, purpose, and community, and genuinely knowing that whatever I'm doing is adding value to other people's lives. And I think I just went through a period where I kind of lost sight of that
Mm.
within my own journey. So came off path, did that for a year, well, 18 months to be exact. And it's so weird because again, I'm a very intuitive person and, I always just be guided by my gut. And it was actually May 2023, I had this like outer and inner body experience where I was actually at a conference for this brand, a huge conference in London. I was living, what some people might describe as a corporate dream. I'd never done that. I'd always worked remotely through Arbonne. So to be going down to London to these conferences and events felt very exciting. I was doing it every quarter. But I remember being at this event surrounded by like people in suits and it was free bars, loads of alcohol. We'd done it like 3 nights on the straight and just been like this experience of, whoa, this is not your home. And then I went home that night, like literally left, went home to my Airbnb and just sobbed and cried. And it was weird. It was like this somatic experience where I was like, Rachel, what are you doing? Like, this is not your purpose. Just
Mm.
show up for yourself again. And I made the decision then that to fully show up again for me, for my brand, for my business, for Arbonne. But I knew that I needed to do it in a way that was, we talk about aligned, and I feel like it's, bandied about a lot, but it had to be in alignment. There was no other way. And, since then, just really going on a journey of doing a lot of inner work to trust myself again. Because I think the most difficult thing, both in Arbonne and any business or the world, there's a lot of voices, there's a lot of opinions, and everybody's definition is different. So I really had to tune into myself, and I ended up working with an intuitive coach, and that was really the kind of catalyst for me of doing deeper inner work, getting to know myself, getting to trust myself again, and actually getting to know like what were my beliefs, untagging from other people's, and also previous belief systems that served me in those seasons but weren't going to serve me in this new chapter.
Mm.
So it has been a real journey, and the more I trust myself, the more I do life and business in a way that I know is true for me, like, actually the resistance lifts that I once faced.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You mentioned an intuitive coach, and I want to talk about now what that's led to because obviously you did that work for yourself, but now you're actually going through the process of doing a diploma, isn't it? It's a whole
Yeah,
diploma
yeah.
in intuitive coaching and psychology, isn't it? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so intuitive psychology, coach. Yeah.
Intuitive psychology coach. So you're how far are you into the program? Like halfway?
I'm now just over halfway through the program, yeah.
And let's talk about that. Like, what are you discovering? Like, I know you're smiling here, there's a lot, but what's lighting you up in that space? And what, like, because obviously you are, as part of your hours, you're offering coaching to people to make sure you get your hours up to practice the tools and techniques that are taught in this diploma. But how are you finding it? But more importantly, what's that doing for other people? What's coming up? Because you do a lot of work with women, so it'd be curious to know like what's coming up for women, just in generally, without being specific. Like, what are you
Yeah.
observing?
What I'm observing is there's a huge shift, I believe, in the world and people. People are really coming, and you speak about this, Michelle, coming home to themselves. And I think COVID and lockdowns gave people this unique opportunity to pause. We'd all been on the hamster wheel of life, and they got off the hamster wheel and they sat with themselves, and it allowed them to tune into what actually makes me happy. And I think there's a lot of people looking at their lifestyle, their work life, their career path, maybe their relationships, and they're asking themselves, is this really the path that I want to continue on? So there's a lot of people right now that are feeling a bit disconnected, and that can lead to confusion and fear. So really through the work that I've been doing through my own journey with intuitive psychology is I think the most powerful thing about this training program is we have to embody the work. So, as part of the training, we go through the modules and the learning, but we also get coached by another peer coach. So basically, I have been trained up in 34 techniques, and it's the blend of science and intuition. And in the techniques, there's sort of three pillars. We have the past, we have the present, and then we have the future. Now, a lot of mainstream coaches, especially business coaches, will work on very future focused goals. So all goal orientated, and it's all very metric measured. And you see this in the corporate industry, like executive coaches work very much on the measurements of success being metrics and goals. But what I have saw through my own journey and through the women that I work with, we can't powerfully step forward into our compelling future without releasing the burdens from the past. So all of us will have belief systems, paradigms. Some people, like in psychology, it's called trauma. And I think people can associate trauma with a negative thing. We all have trauma. And I would say trauma is just experiences. It's just memories and experiences that we all in some way it is held on to in our bodies and also in our subconscious. So through the intuitive psychology coaching, we work with the past through techniques like it's called the shadow alchemy. So inner child work, unlayering, working with parts. And we really help people to bring awareness to the parts of themselves, those memories that are maybe playing in the present and not allowing them to powerfully step into their compelling future. And I can say for me, the resistance that I was facing in my life in terms of the fulfillment and abundance that I wanted in my relationship and also in my business, I couldn't step into that because my subconscious and my past was stopping me from stepping forward because of these narratives and these stories that I was telling myself of success was hard, success meant pain, happiness meant pain. So through the coach, I've really worked with my own past, which has given me this heightened sense of awareness, which means I've been really been able to um, change my beliefs around happiness and around what my future looks like in terms of my own values, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so it's been so transformational. It has at times felt challenging because, again, you're not just learning, but you're embodying the work. And, I had to go back to things and bring up things that at times were difficult to sit with.
Mm.
But what I do know is on the other side of that is a freedom that I can't even describe.
That's amazing. I'm so excited to see what happens as you complete this diploma and then the impact you're going to have because I know that you're working on developing something that you can offer off the back of this qualification and everything you're learning. So I'm so excited to see where it leads you. I was just curious to pick up on, you had these certain beliefs around, and I know you've shared this with me around happiness is only for a limited amount of time
Mhm.
because you would get it and then you would lose it, you would get it and you would lose it. Can you talk about like a sort of old belief like that, like an old like sort of program, and now how you've actively develop new ones? 'Cause I think that would be good for people to tune into, like, how have you actually done that? Just to give an example of one, it could be that one or another one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually worked on this in my coaching session today, and a technique was used on me called the happiness belief change technique. And this is where you embed new belief systems. So one of the belief systems that we uncovered that I previously held was that success is created through sacrifice, because I think in, our industry and many industries, it's all no pain, no gain, you
Yeah.
know, sacrifice, work hard,
Mhm.
um,
Work
and
harder and harder.
and harder and harder. And what I had realized is actually I get to be happy. I can still strive towards my heart's desires, higher potential, but I get to choose to be happy along the way. And the past version of myself was very stoic in the sense that I would get to the destination and realize I'm still not happy. So bringing more joy into my life by enjoying the journey, but also that who says that success and happiness needs to be hard? Like, I fundamentally do not believe that anymore. And I'm choosing that reality. And that is a belief that I am embedding, that it doesn't need to be hard. I believe that there tends to be two camps of people. And interestingly, I read a post today about the issue with the world just now is people are taking the path of least resistance. And basically going on to say there's too much people who are saying slow down, self care, and to an extent, like, I agree with what she was saying, but what I fundamentally believe is there's a place for both. So there's a place for me, this new belief system that I have built is there's a place for working hard with intention. And that involves the masculine sort of actions and systems where you have processes and systems in your life in order to take action to move the needle forward. So working hard with intention, but also making sure those self-care practices and rituals are there too. So for me, it's about really operating in the middle, and there's a place for both. There's a place for working hard, but also self-care and slowing down. And as I lean more into that, when I look at the last couple of months in my business, I've experienced more joy, more happiness, but also more growth in terms of my revenue.
Mhm.
But where before I always set the revenue goal, the title goal, the external goal, and believed that, like, that was the only way to it.
Yeah,
Whereas now it's just about bringing more joy into my business and really working in that place, which is in the middle of, both essentially.
yeah, I love that. That's so good. What do you feel the world needs to hear right now, or what message do you feel you need to say right now?
I feel that people need to tune in more to their own inner wisdom. I think that we live in a world that is very noisy, and the incredible tools and information that we have access to is amazing. But what that has also stopped people from doing is really tuning into their own wisdom and their own voice, their own intuition. we speak about this within intuitive psychology. It's using a blend of psychology based coaching techniques, but also guiding people back to themselves through their own unique intuition. I feel like a lot of people have lost that. I certainly did. And I can speak from my own experience. And that was a scary place to be in where I didn't trust myself. It makes me emotional because it did feel like a really dark place and constantly looking to others for the answers. And the thing is everybody's definition of happiness, success, and healthy living is completely different. So the best advice I could give to people is find ways to tune more into yourself and your own inner voice to really get to a place where you can ground yourself in the certainty of what's right for you. And practices that have helped me with that have been practices that I never ever saw myself doing. I was very much the go hard or go home person, constantly on the go, like sitting still was not a thing. So, meditation, nervous system regulation, being in nature, yoga nidra, all of these things that really have allowed me actually to quieten the noise and deepen my connection with myself. And I said this recently, like the more connected I am to myself, the more connected I feel to others. And honestly, like my business is thriving again, my relationships are thriving. And that started with me just really tuning into my own inner voice and coming home to myself.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. For those that are not connected to you, how do people reach out to you or get connected? Where will they find you?
So main sort of social media platforms, Instagram is Rachel underscore limitless living. And Facebook again, just Rachel Chan. So yeah, those are the kind of two main platforms if you want to come into my world and just connect with me.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it because every time I see Rachel post or share a live or her words, she's very good at writing. She's an incredible writer, so her words are very powerful. Like every time I see her post, I'm like, yes, I needed to read that today. So yeah, follow Rachel, follow her journey, and I'm sure at some point she'll be a massive inspiration and perhaps even a bit of help to any of you listening. So have a great day. I'll speak to you all soon. Thanks, Rachel.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, download the Yoga Nidra right after this episode. Make sure you have a listen. It's the most beautiful guided meditation that will regenerate your mind, your body, and your soul. Take care. See you soon.